Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to drop a line here real quick and give you a thought on a regenerative system that is water throughout the community, in the town, and the neighborhoods, the cities, the way that the infrastructure is set up, the way that we send our water that lands on our property to municipalities where they treat it, fill it with carcinogenic chemicals in the name of purification, and then send it back to us with a bill attached. Now, that's a whole lot. So let's open that up for just a minute. I just want to give you a quick 3-minute video. I'm going to try to be fast here. Let me show you where I'm at right now. So right here we have some water catchment off the side of the road. It goes into these primary ditches and comes around. All the groundwater anywhere in town, no matter where you are, in any modern city or town, will run off into the ditches and the gutters, go down through the tunneling system and the pipes and the plumbing, and get up all the way into the gravity-fed bottom sink, which is where they put the water treatment plants. The water treatment plants are very interesting because when you watch what happens on how the water gets there and reverse engineer it, you realize that the water was actually first on your land. You had the water first. So let's give an example. We get 31 inches of rain per year in Trenton, Missouri. We can catch upwards about of 100,000 gallons on my roof in my shop and per year, and that ends up falling off into the ditch because we don't have the rain tank set up yet. If we did, we would have upwards of 100,000 gallons of rain per year, and then that would turn into potable water that we could then use, coming straight out of the clouds, falling through the atmosphere, maybe some dust particles and things that it picked up, chemtrail, right, whatever. Then it comes all the way down into the filtration basin inside the gutter piping that then goes into my pipe or into my cistern or holding tank. And then from there we can pump it out into the main household utilities like the sink, the dishwasher, the bathroom, whatever it may be. Now, that being the case, for the shop it's a little bit different. It's not a house scenario because it's a commercial setting, so there's some different hoops and be more of a smoothie bar it's going to be plumbed to. But for your residential housing, that's what it would look like. Now, all that water being used can then go through gray water treatment, which then allows it to be purified to the point where the soaps and the oils are removed, and it can be used in your garden. And you can do that completely passively with zero electricity. It can be completely gravity fed. Then by the time it gets out into the garden and the system, it's absorbed into the swales or any kind of earthworks that have taken place. And then when it moves out of the earthworks, it's already nurtured all of your plants, and if there's a major rain event and it fills all those earthwork depositories and holding places, then it goes through the gravity system into the exit point, the sink on your property and the exit point of your land. So usually a pond or something a little bit higher use along the way, but in the end it ends up in some kind of a holding place before it exits your property for good in the event of an overflow. And then the purpose of this is to use it as many times as possible. For black water, we can actually let that land into a place where it's developing biogases, which are actually flammable and usable in the household as a free fuel source. You can run your whole stove, your kitchen stove, with no scent, no smell, off of biogas from a properly managed wastewater system. And then you can put things like your compost scraps in there and generate more biogas. Totally free. You never have to pay the gas company again. You never have to pay the water company again. It's all gravity fed, so you don't have to pay any electric utilities. 100% free. Clean water, no chemicals, hasn't had time to run through the city streets and pick up the debris on the asphalt, the chemical oils or spillage from the cars. And then by the time it gets out to the walking in the morning with my bedhead at our 5-minute mark here now, sorry. We'll go to by the time it gets out of your property and it leaves, then it can join into the primary irrigation system, which can have its own set of filtration systems throughout the city. Biological filtration, not chemical, Things like reed beds, for example, and holding ponds, in places where it can accumulate and biology can do its job. And then it can move from there back into the other systems of the rest of the house, through one household at a time, until eventually we're moving purified water systems. Now the problem with this is that people don't live that way. People use nasty chemicals. We use nasty forever chemicals. We use nasty oils, lots of compounds that are just not fit for biology or our bodies, and we use them freely all over the American continent. And so to get this kind of system in place, it really has to be a people that is like-minded in trying to live free and in a place and position of liberty, and be able to withstand the temptations of a modern luxury microwave thinking society. Now, if we move forward here, let's say that let's go back to the original system. So right now, the holding place that all the water in town, all the rooftops, no rain catch, no ponding, no swales, no nothing, holding it on the landscape that it originally fell on, all that water is running off, going straight into the municipalities. They're treating it with chlorine, fluoride. In my water here out in Trenton, we have a byproduct of formaldehyde in our water. And then we end up with the utility bill for them to say, okay, it takes us power, electricity, labor, and man hours to send that back to you, so we need money for that. So we pay them, they send it back to us. And then when it gets back to our house, it's got chlorine in it. It's not purified, it's still got chemicals. In Trenton, we don't do fluoride, if I remember correctly, but we do have chlorine and some other heavy metals and things in the water. Now that being the case, and don't forget atrazine and chemicals from the farming. So now we can go a little bit further and you say, okay, so it's not purified. I don't know what I paid you for. And now they send it back to me. I pay my bill. And because I live in that system, if I stop paying them, even though it's not what I'm paying for, they turn it off. And because I don't have catchment systems set up and installed, I don't have an alternative. And then because the alternative is regulated by the city, regulated by the federal government, there are capacities I'm allowed to keep and capacities I'm not, systems I'm allowed to use and systems I'm not. And ultimately, the result of all of the regulation is that my family, being a family of 8, cannot hold enough water legally to supplement 100% of our water needs in our household. So then we have to begin looking at how we can live frugally. How do we use less water? How do we conserve? How do we get away from the common paradigms of simply using and consumerism? So then the city says, okay, well, you've used this much. That means we know this much left your property too, which means we have to pay for it again, because that's coming, that wastewater leaving your property is going to be going back into our system. And we have to, I don't even know what their justification is of that, because they already billed us once. So they bill us again in Trenton for wastewater. So all the water that leaves our property, they send another bill for. We get another itemized report on paying for not only the water coming in, but the water leaving, which is just a way of saying they're double taxing us. So then it goes into the treatment plant again, and they do this all over again. Great business plan. They got a great business plan. But for the family member, the household, the consumer, that's rotten. And not only is it rotten, it's bondage. If we don't comply and agree with it, we get consequences. And if we continue to do what they're saying, we degrade and degenerate, because it's not clean, it's not purified, it's not healthy. So we have to go the extra step on our own and get our own purification systems. So what the heck was the point of paying them in the first place? So this is the cycle of bondage that exists in the utility systems across America. It's not just here. This is all over the place. And the reason I say it's bondage is because there's a consequence if you don't comply. And the consequence isn't just that you don't get water. Like you could go catch water. The consequence is enforced consequences. It's consequences that they say, legally you're not allowed to do that, or legally you're not allowed to do this. And so because you're not tied to the utilities, we're going to slap you with a fine. Or because you're operating a system that's not federally regulated or approved by the FDA for purification and sanitation use, we're going to slap you with a fine. And you have to comply where that fine is going to grow by 20% interest every day until you comply. That's slavery. That's a consequence of slavery. So I don't know what people think that we live in America, but it's not freedom. Freedom's been on the loose end of society for a long time. All right, I'll get off my soapbox here, but I want to point out that we don't have to do that anymore. Cities can redesign themselves one household at a time. And the way that you do that is you don't come in and you get a whole bunch of people to agree and then all of a sudden just totally revamp the city. What you do is you start teaching one household at a time until every household starts growing their food, catching their water, recycling gray water, and utilizing the black water to the best capacity they can before it enters that system. Once it enters that system, we can consult with the city, consult with the board, consult with whoever we need to make sure that those things are being handled more sustainably as well. In that kind of a system, I'd gladly pay for it, because number one, you're paying less. And number two, not only are you paying less, but you're going to end up with a system where you're actually getting what you paid for. You're getting a maximum system of abundance and prosperity before it even enters the infrastructure of the city and the grid. And then by the time it does, not only are your needs already met, but your ability to influence the system as a collective society is paramount and priority in everybody's eyes. And because we all live autonomously and abundantly within our own systems, on our own properties, catching water, growing food, and doing it sustainably and regeneratively, it's important to note that we don't have to actually turn around and conform. We are the ones in power at that point. There's no consequence if we don't abide. And that means that the system is not in charge anymore. That puts the people back in charge. That's called Constitution. That's called the original founding of America. That's called freedom. So just some thoughts. I hope this resonates. If it doesn't, drop me a link below. Let's chat.